Good evening and welcome to the second Facebook Live faculty foray. I'm Nigel Boyle. I've been a political studies professor at Pitzer for 26 years. The last 3 I've been Dean of Faculty, a classic case of putting one of the lunatics in charge of the asylum. But anyway, I'm very proud to lead the Pitzer faculty these days. And one of my duties as Dean of Faculty each year is to welcome the incoming class and talk to them about the academic program. And I need to talk to them about the wonders of Pitzer, the Claremont Consortium, Leafy Claremont. But I always make a point of the fact that we're situated here in what many people refer to as Prison Valley. There are more people incarcerated at this end of the Inland Empire than there are in colleges and universities, which is a pretty sobering thought. I also point out to the classes that have come in the last 3 years that they're responsible for the new social justice and intercultural understanding requirements, a new four-course requirement that requires students to wrestle with social issues, intercultural issues, including those in this part of the world. And so making the connection to prisons is an obvious one there. So this evening what we're going to do is have a conversation, and I'm delighted to welcome Pitzer Senior Simone Bashara, and I'll ask her to introduce herself, and then we'll get going, and she from a student's point of view, me from a bureaucrat's point of view, but hopefully still a faculty point of view, can talk about prison education and the initiatives that Pitzer has underway right now. So Simone.
Hello everyone, my name is Simone Bashara. I am a senior graduating in May. I'm a sociology major. I also do a couple of things on campus. I'm a diversity committee senator, chair of the identity board, and president of our Middle Eastern Students Association. So I'm connected on campus, but to have gotten to taking class inside CRC NERCO has been one of the most informative and powerful experiences that I've had at Pitzer. And so I'm really eager to be here with you all speaking about it today. I took Politics of the Middle East with Professor Hamid Rezai, who is Iranian and was formerly incarcerated himself. So that was a really interesting class. Not only is he from the Middle East, but to have the connection to a carceral facility was a really unique experience to get to have with him. That was my first Inside Out class. And then I took Critical Community Studies with Professor Tessa Hicks-Peterson. And that was also really informative and very different than my first class, in that this class focused on incarceration and education in a way that was very reflective and got the whole class to kind of look at our surroundings a little bit more critically and actively through every week. So. And it's great to see the glint in Simone's eyes as she talks about this, and we get that with all students that participate in these Inside Out classes. So let me just take a couple of minutes just to explain where we are in terms of this sort of initiative here at Pitzer. For a long number of years, Pitzer faculty, such as Laura Harris and others, and Pitzer students have been involved in prison-related education, including sometimes classes going and taking place inside carceral facilities. So we're building on a legacy there of individual experimentation by faculty. What we're trying to do is move this to an institutional level now and encourage a larger number of classes. And so we fastened on this Inside Out model where a faculty member teaches a class, and it could be almost any class, teaches it inside the prison. So a number of Claremont students, outside students, are taught by an equal number of inside students. And crucially, the inside students, the inmates, receive Pitzer College credit for this, and the board has agreed to give credit for free. It has to be for free because since the Clinton administration back in the 90s cut Pell Grant funding, there is no funding for students getting academic credit in this fashion. So this is a great model. We've got a huge number of faculty that are interested in doing this now, and this has developed interest across the Claremont Consortium. In fact, we've got faculty lining up to teach these classes. These classes are hard to get into. They're the hottest classes on campus. They're really difficult as students. And so we're moving it to the next stage now and making it a Pitzer-led consortial initiative. So next year there are going to be Inside Out classes from all of the 5 undergraduate colleges. And what this is enabling us to do is build curriculum inside the
CRC prison, this one prison we're in, we can subsequently expand to others, we think. And actually give inside students, the inmates, the opportunity to, working with a local community college, do associate's degrees, and we have ambitions that they could do full bachelor's degrees a little down the road. So we're at a point of liftoff here now, and it's very exciting to see Pitzer working with the consortium, because working together, collaborating with the other Claremont colleges and with this local community college, I think we're able to accomplish some pretty significant things. So that's where we are with this initiative, and we know that there's some questions been submitted already by Pitzer alums, and we'll start. I'll answer a couple of those, and then Simone and I will chat. If there's other questions that come in, these will be communicated to us, and we'll attempt to answer those as well. A couple of the questions that came in concerned how many students have been involved thus far. So with the full inside-out class, in classes where the inside students receive credit, there have been 15 of these classes so far. So altogether about 150 Claremont students. All classes are open to all Claremont students, not just Pitzer students, plus an equivalent number, so about 150 inside students. Some of them are repeat, so there's not necessarily 150 total, but that's about the number. Next year we plan to have 10 classes altogether, inside-out classes, but there's going to be a large number of community college classes taught alongside our classes, and we're integrating that curriculum. So this is something that's expanding. There's some great examples across the country of inside-out programs and other kinds of prison education programs, but they tend to be standalone and great experiences perhaps in their own right, but this is now something where we're hoping to sort of build something that could be not just sustainable, but really a powerful model for the state of California. So that's kind of where we are with building the program right now. And as I mentioned, it's just great to hear, and I see all the student evaluations, so I'm kind of used to the students raving, oh, it's the best class I've ever taught. But maybe I can ask Simone to sort of give us a little sense of of what it's like being in one of these classes as a Pitzer student, as a Claremont student. So Simone.
For sure, I'll reiterate most powerful and influential experiences that I've had at Pitzer as far as my academic and curricular journey, but also the things that I'd like to do after Pitzer and kind of those life goals that you have, right? Like the trajectory I'd like to see myself on in this grander sense, and that I've taken many classes at Pitzer. I'm a sociology major, so most of those classes are inequality focused, and I've learned and studied mass incarceration and prison abolition across many disciplines, but to go inside and to meet real people and to have that real personal connection with actual humans and actual faces and stories, it just completely revolutionizes the way that I've considered things like prison abolition and mass incarceration. And it's interesting because you take this large idea of mass incarceration, which is very structural and institutional, and you bring it down to just one-on-one relationships, and you'd think that would take away from this idea, but it completely amplifies the pursuit to dismantle that. So that for me has been amazing, and that comes from classroom communities that are full of trust and full of this intensity that is unparalleled on campus. And not because the students are any smarter or anything like that, but because the difference of experience coming together and the, again, sheer intensity of you're entering a prison and you're sitting with incarcerated people who just have such starkly different daily lives, and that contrast really brings to light conversations that could not happen on campus, right. And so that really fosters trust and community in ways that, like, I would love to see in every class ever, but that I'm really honored to have participated in. Right. And it's
interesting. You use the word intensity, right, 3 times there,
yes.
And that's a word that comes up. And if I can make a snide comment about your generation, but one of the features of these inside out classes is that there's no cell phones. You're without. There's no internet connection. So there's this 4-hour block where you're focused intensely on this material with this group of inside students who hold you accountable. So aside from anything else, there is this sort of pedagogical intensity to whatever the subject matter of the course might be. And that's something that you've experienced, I think. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. There's definitely, so everyone has to bring in readers, right? We can't just like pull up our readings on our laptops. How funny would that be, right?
And there are kind of rules governing how you interact with the
absolutely.
So there can't be the sort of casual sort of chit chat or seeing someone outside of class.
Right.
So again, that kind of drives the focus down on the learning quite strongly.
Very much. I mean, you have 10 weeks or 11 weeks or 12 weeks, however many weeks boil down in that semester. For how many weeks you can go in, and that's also including however many weeks you actually get like good instructional time because of either entering, there's a problem, exiting, there's a problem, whatever, right? So it boils down to you have so many hours, and those hours are all you have with your classmates and with your professor in that setting. You cannot communicate with the men outside. There's just the minute it ends, it's done. And then on top of that, it ends and you've made these amazing connections. You've had this amazing class and you've learned so much. You can't even hug the guys goodbye. Like, you can barely shake their hands. And they're so eager to shake everyone's hands and to say goodbye. And there's this like push and pull of we've now done this very, very intimate thing, this like powerful thing together, and then there's a handshake goodbye and a thank you so much, and that wraps it up. And so
that intimacy applies to relations between the inside students themselves as well.
Absolutely.
So we've got a lot of the feedback from the inside students that they open up to one another in that classroom setting in a way that is impossible outside, where prison face applies, and it's remarkable that and it's something that they crave, because until we started doing these classes, all they had were these correspondence courses where they would mail materials out. They never meet the instructor, they never interact with other students, but this is a real class with a real professor, and this very direct interaction with both inside and outside students. So
yeah, and there's this like explicit understanding we're pushing boundaries. We're pushing our own boundaries of like how many people in the world are just like, yes, I'll go to a prison this week and next week and the week after that, and willingly and hopefully and happily. So you're pushing that boundary. You're pushing the boundary of this constant and fervent and purposeful dehumanization that prison industrial complex forces upon inmates, right? And then you're pushing boundaries of life experience. So rarely do we come across people in these environments and in learning environments where you just have so little in common potentially, right? Or you have so much in common, right, and you never expected it, right. And so you're pushing those boundaries also, and so it's constant in that way, right. I mean, it's I always say when I talk about this, we're building bridges between life experience. You're building bridges between academia and those who are deemed undeserving of that academia, and you're building bridges between people and other people who otherwise would not be able to build those bridges, right? Because they have that present face, that constant dehumanization that I just need to get on and get through this, versus really like learning and growing. And these classes, the option and the availability and the ability to do that really truly is truly transformative for everybody that comes in contact with it. So.
One of the questions that came in from alumni was about what sorts of classes, what sorts of majors participate in this. And the beauty of Inside Out classes is it could be almost anything.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you took this Middle East politics class with Hamid in there. There's no reason why other classes relate to the criminal justice system. There's no there are some connections perhaps, but there's no obvious reason why that class. But I've heard some great stories about this class, so maybe you could comment a little on it about what it was like to study Middle East, what studying Middle East politics in a prison setting was like, as compared to in just one of the colleges here in Claremont.
Absolutely. So the interesting thing about Middle Eastern politics, right, is that it's very relevant. We talk about it, it's in the news, and the guys don't necessarily have all that access to that relevance, right? They can watch the news and they understand, and many of them haven't been incarcerated for so long that it isn't relevant. So so you still have that like lingering relevance, but there maybe not be that like constant updatedness. Hamid was able to bring in history and politics in such an integrative way that we were all on the same page all of the time. So that was really nice to be able to level that playing field really quickly and efficiently, in a way that we all felt like we were speaking the same language as much as we could, right? And Hamid also brings in this like really cool personal experience of having been incarcerated, having been a political dissident, and having, lived there and be of all of those politics and history, right? And so that was really interesting too. And then what really shocked me, and so I took the class, one, because I've had experience in carceral-like settings in this like volunteerist way, right? So I wanted to do something a little bit more integrative, but also because I'm Arab American, and so politics in the Middle East was very relevant for me, and it was something that I was like, well, it's a great opportunity to do. And so I took this class like with those things in mind, with a very academic focus, and just like a lingering personal connection. But the ways that every student, regardless of incarcerated or not, or personal experience or not, was able to engage with the material. And Hamid talks a million miles per hour, and he is so knowledgeable about what he's speaking about that it's just so engaging. Middle Eastern politics could get so dry so quickly, and I don't think I was bored for a second in that class. And he also did the really, really, I think, important things where he gives you 100 pages of reading a class, and you're sitting here like, I don't know if I can do all this reading, and of course you do, because you know the men are doing it, so you do it. So
and if you don't do it, they'll hold you accountable.
100%, and they'll
ask. Week. If you don't do it, it's like they're on you.
100%, because they wait to talk about it, and because there's only
they have no tolerance if you're not
right,
prepared.
Absolutely not. And so you do these 100 pages of reading, and you realize not only did Hamid give this to us because part of it will come up in our conversation. There's no way our classes are shorter than the average once a week Pitzer class, or there's no way to cover the amount of material he gives us, but he gives us this material and the men can walk away with it and have it forever now. And so that's really important too, is that there's this foundation of like, okay, we're talking about this now, but here are ways that you can expand and learn more and engage with this post this class. So that was really nice too. I think I would have loved any class with Hamid, but to get to do this class with Hamid and have focuses that weren't purely academia and this author and this opinion. I'm going to talk about our opinions and our experiences that in such ways that were juxtaposed in ways that I could have never expected was just truly an honor.
Right. Another one of the questions we got was about student safety. And I've got a lovely story, and it concerns that class because there was a first semester student, Zhang, who's our first fully matriculated student from Vietnam. So first semester freshman from Vietnam. She's in this Middle East Studies politics. There's, as you mentioned, Arab American, Jewish American students in the class. She's taking this class inside the prison. She didn't dare tell her parents that she was doing this class until it was over. But for her, it was just this like amazing intellectual experience, but also an incredible experience, introduction to America. It's the first time in the United States. So, anyway, it was a great experience for her. But again, perhaps you can comment on this is often raised by parents and others. Is it safe and so forth? So, what's your experience been in that respect?
I've never felt unsafe. I will tell you that. I think the only time I've ever felt scrutinized or kind of questionable is entering and exiting the facility, so not in interaction with the men that I'm in class with, but more so with like the carceral system and those responsible for that carceral, or responsible essentially for upkeeping the rules of that carceral system. Right. I always felt very secure. They send you in with whistles. They tell you, if anything ever happens, you blow this whistle. Of course, everyone is so inclined to blow the whistle far before anything ever happens. It's around your neck all the time. You're not allowed to walk in without it.
One of the rules.
Yes, one of the rules. And you're prepped with this extensive volunteer presentation in which they tell you all the rest of the rules. No these colors, no that colors, never share a stick of gum. There's the constant story. If you share a stick of gum, it's starting a relationship that could develop to be exploitative, which has never happened to me, but I've also never brought gum, so I don't know.
No.
And then, you can't hug, you can only sit so close, and there have been tons of times where we're working together on a piece of paper, like on a paper or on a reading, and one of the people who work at CRC will say, you need to get further away from her. And of course not addressing me, but addressing the incarcerated person I was working with. So, there's definitely all these safeguards, right? But also the focus and the trust and the community in that class has always been what I've fallen back on. Those relationships that have never ever been threatened by anything, purely because the people I was working with were incarcerated. Right. And I went in with that mindset. I went in with, they're people. They happen to be incarcerated, but I'm working with just men, like it's just men. And the incarcerated aspect will really influence the class, right? But they don't have to influence my personal relationships or my personal safety. And I have an interesting similar story with my parents in that I really was...
You didn't tell them?
I did tell them, but it was more of I'm going to this class today that happens to be here. It wasn't this sit-down conversation. And it spurred many other conversations. One, because again, Middle Eastern politics is particularly relevant to my family, but also because it's taking place in this really tenuous situation, and it's an honor for us to be able to go inside as Americans and to kind of introspect our criminal justice system and our mass incarceration fetish, but the ways my parents would have never perceived or conceived of happening where they went to school. So that's also, I think, an interesting contrast. But yeah, same questions always, like, are you okay? Was it okay? Are you? And then the jokes, which are funny, but also just like, the constant jokes. And so, yeah.
So another one of the questions we received was what it's like working with staff inside the prison and prison officials. And you've kind of referenced this already there, but can you comment on, the experience of going in, taking this class inside, coming out, and your observations about how a prison, even a level 2 prison, a relatively low-level prison in the California system, but how that functions and your experiences with staff members.
Yes, absolutely. I'll start with a story. So one of the last times that I went in with my last class, I was wearing the same pants that I had always worn. You're not allowed to wear jeans because the men are issued denim, normal light blue denim jeans. So you're not allowed to wear denim jeans. And so I had gone in the same pants I had worn for the last 7 weeks or something like that. And one of the guards that checks you in and checks you out decided that my jeans looked too blue. And the fear, right, is that you want to be identified as not an incarcerated person as when you walk out of the facility for the people scoping the parking lot, right? So they kind of present it as this fear for your safety in your life, right? So they asked that I put these different pants on over my pants, and these canvasy, they looked like potato sack bag pants that also barely fit over my legs and my jeans. It was a very funny look, and I walked in and the guys were like, what is this? Because they're written there's CRC Norco all over them on a couple of places. They're very obviously not the pants that I chose to wear that day. Raggedy. It was just something for me to throw on that wasn't blue. And they asked me to throw it over my pants also, which I was like, really, we're just trying to get up the hill, kind of waddling. And the guys were like, so what's going on here? Obviously, you didn't choose to wear this situation. And I was like, oh, actually, they thought my pants were too blue or whatever. And one of the guys looked at me and was like, oh, those pants are the pants they give us when we leave, as our exit materials or part of it. And I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition to where the mindset I was already in, because it's very much you get looked up and down, and as a brown woman that's an interesting experience, but also just not something you're used to doing before class, especially at Pitzer. You wear what you want to wear, you show up, it's about the intellectualism, and here that's different. And so you get looked up and down, there's this judgment call, and so I was really ticked off, but mostly just kind of thrown off on the kind of focus I try to go into these classes with, again, because you were given a certain amount of time, you have to be focused and intentional about the mindset you go into. So I was thrown off, and for them to present me with that, the constant reminder that as frustrating as that is, that entering and having this kind of push and pull with the guards, you get to leave. You get this immense honor to visit the prison, and it's truly a visit. And to engage and to learn and whatever, but you leave and you go back to your life and you eat whatever you want and you wake up when you want and all these things. And I get to wear whatever I want, frankly, for every hour except these couple of hours. And so that was an interesting juxtaposition, and it's part of this Inside Out class. But to go back to the staff, it is a constant push and pull. So every once in a while we'll see the warden will be so happy to see us, and we'll all smile and say hi and whatever, and then we exit again, and the guards are looking us up and down and checking our books, checking our notes, and asking, like, not really asking us how it was, but like asking why. Like, every time I've gone, on the first couple times, if it's a couple of different guards, the guards will ask us, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like, why are you showing up?
Yeah.
And every time we say we really believe in what we're doing and the potential of the people we're with and the impact that this has for us as well as for them. And so every time it's the same, you kind of have to sell it again. And it's understandable, right? Like, it's understandable that they're actively participating in this system of their will or of not, right? You can questionable things about, like, when you get to pick your job, but
they're resentful,
right? Absolutely.
We're these liberal arts colleges going in, providing this great educational experience for these guilty guys. And there's resentment.
And what about their kids, you know?
Exactly. You mentioned the warden, Cynthia Tamkins, is a very progressive warden. She's great, being very supportive. So at the top level, we've got all this great support. Yes. But there's sometimes issues with the lower level staff where they can make your life difficult if they want to.
Absolutely.
And we've attempted to address that because, as you mentioned, they've got kids too. They're concerned about paying for college as well. And so we have done. We've tried to cultivate the relationship with the staff as well as with the inside students. So the staff, we've allowed them to have a retreat here at Pitzer. Our admissions office has done a presentation for staff there about them and their kids getting into college. We've been telling some of the staff there about our new resource program, which some previously incarcerated people have used, but others, non-traditional age students, may wish to use as well. So it's a part of what we need to do to cultivate the relationship. But it's important too that our students see the reality of prison life and the kind of micromanaged lives that people inside have. So
absolutely. I mean, and if they can tell me what pants I need to wear for 2 hours, I cannot imagine the constant degradation that's happening inside of people that don't get to leave, of the folks who not only are told what to wear, but what to eat and how to eat it and when and all of those things. And so, it's very illuminating.
Yeah. So, anyway, but you're going to be graduating.
Yes, I am graduating.
So you mentioned that this has kind of reshaped a lot of your ideas. So can you perhaps say a little about where, you've obviously talked to other students that have experienced these classes as well. So what's kind of the impact, do you think, of this kind of educational experience?
Yes, I will try to be concise because I really could talk about this particular part of it forever because it is so much of what I love about this program. Again, these personal relationships have carried me through those whole semesters, and that they're really some of the most genuine and trusting connections that I've made as a college student. This isn't to say anything about the rest of my college experience, but really to illuminate how amazing and in depth and amazing the relationships I'm making inside are. And those are the things. Those are the kinds of experiences that I'm eager to take away from Pitzer and to look at really critically as I enter the workforce and I think about the ways that my actions and my life will impact those people, those real faces and stories, and generations below that, right? And people coming into the system and that are particularly vulnerable to it. And so my life focus, the things that I love studying, are specifically surrounding juvenile incarceration and juvenile systems that affect people who are particularly vulnerable to be juvenile offenders. and the ways that we treat juvenile offenders in the carceral system, in the criminal justice system to begin with, before they become incarcerated. So to meet the men and to see and to hear their stories and to hear so much of how carceral systems and the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration were touching their lives before they even stepped foot in a prison or before they understood what a prison was, is really kind of just illuminates and supports all of this like love that I have for studying these things and wanting to go into those things. And it's for me the way that I feel I'm going to be best suited to kind of address this, right? Because everyone fits in a particular way. The minute you decide that you want to spend your life engaging with these things, you fit in somehow. And for me, that's been the most impactful stories I've heard. And the part of the stories that I felt like the men are the most connected to are these childhoods of many different stories, and so many of the men come from like so many corners of the world and so many experiences. It's not this like cookie cutter, like you go to school and you fail a class, you end up in jail. It's not that easy. I mean, sometimes it is, but for a lot of the men, it really isn't. All of these stories complicate this narrative that even as prison abolitionists, we talk about. And so it's those points in the stories that I like to focus on and that I like to see myself one day impacting and maybe molding, so that less people end up in these CRC classes. Like ultimately that's the goal, right? For this whole program to be irrelevant.
Yes, indeed. So, well, you've heard from an outside student perspective, a Pitzer student perspective here, from a faculty member who's done a bit of prison teaching. The empty seat here is where the inside student, we haven't had that voice in the conversation. So maybe to finish, I could say a couple of things there. There's lots of ethical and political dilemmas that you encounter in working with prisons and doing conducting these sorts of initiatives. And at Pitzer, we like to think critically about what it is that we're doing. The Inside Out model has some features built into it, such as all faculty who teach such classes have to go through a quite rigorous training, a 10-day training, part of which is conducted by inmates, by students who've gone through these classes previously. There's a think tank, an organization within the prison of inside students who've gone through these programs who can articulate their interests and preferences regarding the program. But we're also thinking about what this may amount to cumulatively. So again, because of this collaboration we have with Norco Community College, we can now try and scaffold curriculum so that guys inside can do associate's degree for transfer. Down the road, we're hopeful that we could even create a college within CRC prison, changing the upper yard to being a college within the prison, and there could be full bachelor's programs, so that there's really these are not just nice to sort of discrete experiences that a small group of people would have, but something that would actually help provide a scaffolding for some people inside to get educational qualifications and then and move on from there. So there are the dilemmas with working with what I think we can agree is a pretty monstrous system of mass incarceration, but I think this sort of initiative, I think, can be something that can be an example for other institutions, certainly in California, but maybe beyond as well. So it's pretty depressing thinking about mass incarceration. And what's nice about this initiative is it's given a lot of faculty and students, inside students and outside students, a sense that, you know what, we can actually do something that might have a big impact here. So hopefully that's what will happen going forward. So so we look forward to, after you graduate, future generations of Pitzer students being participating in this, and future generations of inside students, including the pathway for inside students to become Pitzer students. And we have had, through the New Resource Program, a number of formerly incarcerated people who have come to Pitzer and done great things here. So, anyway. So I think our time is up for what we were supposed to do this evening. So we hope this has been informative for those attending. It's been lovely talking to and reminiscing with Simone about the experience. But thanks a lot, everybody, and Slán Uile.